Welcome to today's General Counsel Advantage webinar. The topic today is leading legal teams in today's unpredictable dynamic business environment, which I think we can all have experienced over the last 6 months or so. My name is Bob Barker, and thank you for joining today. Maureen Brundage, BarkerGilmore Senior Advisor and former GC of Chubb, will lead the discussion with Elisa Garcia, Chief Legal Officer of Macy's. For those that may not be familiar with BarkerGilmore, so we specialize in helping legal and compliance departments build their team, develop the talent, as well as optimize the function overall. And so that includes recruiting general counsel, any lawyer who reports into the general counsel, as well as CCOs. And we also provide coaching, as well as a unique blend of mentoring and advising to help legal and compliance leaders accelerate their success. Today's webinar, again, part of our GC Advantage program. It's a professional development program for corporate legal and compliance leaders. And it really provides an opportunity to interact and as well as learn from general counsel, CCOs, CEOs, as well as board members and search consultants at times to help provide some insights and help you advance your career. Today's broadcast is being recorded, and an email will be sent to everyone once the material's up on our website over the next couple days. We also have on-demand webinars, so this will be one of those where you can view the recording, as well as for those who want to listen to it through a podcast. As far as an upcoming webinar that we have, the next one is going to be the challenges and pitfalls of transitioning into and out of the compliance officer role. And you can join Haiti Ollinger, who is also a senior advisor on our team and former McDonald's Global CCO. She'll be joined by Stephanie Lambert, the CCO of NetScout, and they'll share their insights on what new compliance officers should focus on, as well as for those suggestions, what have you, for those maybe transitioning out of the role. Today, please submit your questions. There should be on the Zoom app a Q&A icon, and so you should also be able to see other questions that have already been submitted. And if you see one that's similar to your question, you can just click the thumbs up icon. That way the speakers today will know that it's a popular question and raise it to the top. And we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible today. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Maureen, and then I'll be back at the end of today's program.
Thanks, Bob. So as Bob said, I'm Maureen Brundage, and I'm a senior advisor with BarkerGilmore. I provide coaching and advisory services to general counsels and others in the legal sphere. Prior to that, I was the executive vice president, general counsel, chief ethics officer, and corporate secretary, big title, at the Chubb Corporation. I'm also currently serve on the board and audit committee of Mafre USA, which is a property casualty insurance company. And I also am involved in a number of volunteer and non-for-profit organizations, which I'm really enjoying. It's my pleasure to introduce Elisa today. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I got told I've been saying it wrong for 15 years, quite embarrassing. So we met several years ago. I think we don't even remember when we met, but our paths, of course, umpteen times ever since. And we discovered we had a lot in common. We're both New York City girls, and I had thought she was Queens, I was Brooklyn. I turned out this morning she was originally Brooklyn, so we're both Brooklyn girls, so a lot in common. And we both have 30+ year careers, which we both began at the age of 10, just to make that clear. And we both have experience working at a law firms, working in-house and also as board directors. But what I've come to admire in particular about Elisa's career is, and it differs from mine, in that she has been at a number of in-house positions at a variety of companies, but with names that are really household names that you will all know. Since 2016, she has been the Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary at Macy's, and is a member of Macy's Enterprise Committee, which sets the overall strategic direction for the company. In addition to legal, she leads the information security, enterprise risk management, business resiliency, and data privacy functions. So a very busy lady. Prior to Macy, she was Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary at Office Depot, where she had global responsibility for legal, compliance, and government relations matters. And she also led investor relations, enterprise risk management, asset protection, and internal audit. So again, involved in many aspects of the business. Prior to that, she was General Counsel of Domino's Pizza, which we all know well. And prior to that, she held in-house positions at Philip Morris and GAF. And for any of you who have had to do roof replacement, myself included, you know GAF. So a really impressive career at really impressive companies. She also devotes time to nonprofit work, serving on the boards of the Institute for Inclusion in the Legal Profession and Direct Women, as well as being on the advisory board of Corporate Pro Bono and the Pro Bono Institute. She also, in her spare time, serves on the board of directors of Dollarama, a leading Canadian value retailer, which has stores both in Canada and Latin America. So I thank you very much for joining me today. And just to begin, I guess, over the last number of years, we have all seen one crisis after another happening. We've gone through, and it may not be over, a global pandemic. We have a war in Ukraine that sometimes looks like World War III. We have continuing high inflation, constant talk and fears about a coming recession. Maybe it's already here, maybe it's coming. More concerns of late about a potential banking crisis. And to add to that now, we're all in fear of whether or not the US government's going to default because of the debt ceiling discussions that are still ongoing. So lots of things floating around there. And change seems to be a constant, whether it's as a result of targeted disruption to industries and business, or technological innovations like ChatGPT, which everyone is talking about, or something else that's going on. So we never seem to get to a new normal, but maybe that is the new normal, that we'll never get to a new normal. So it'd be great if you could share your views about the current work environment, and what do you see, what are you encountering as your biggest challenges for you in leading in this climate?
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, first of all, thanks for having me. And, you talk about my storied career and all the different places I've been. My family kind of looks at it as, I can't hold a job, but, every opportunity's been a challenge and offered different learnings. And I'm putting them all together now for Macy's. You talked about all of the things we've been facing in the last couple of years. I just want to add to that the increased racial violence, the gun violence, the increase of the threatening of the rights of the LGBT community, and women's rights are also under assault. So on top of all of the economic issues and the pandemic, we have that as well, and that is as important, especially as when we're talking to our teams. When the pandemic happened, every company had to figure out how to get the work done, right? As a retailer, we had to figure out how to keep the lights on. The majority of our revenue was gone overnight. We closed 783 Macy's, 55 Bloomingdale's, and 160 Blue Mercury stores, and we had no sales, right? Yeah, there was the website, but we were having trouble fulfilling because people couldn't go into the fulfillment centers. And we were not, one of the companies that sold groceries, so we were not able to stay open. Try explaining that to your board, that someone can still go get a pair of jeans at Walmart, but can't get it at Macy's. So,
And can get liquor too.
pardon?
Can get liquor. That was
Always.
essential.
And I'm all for that. I think we all needed that during the pandemic.
Right.
But the first thing we had to do was we had to figure out how to delay the bills and how to delay our landlords from getting paid and restructure our debt just to ensure we had liquidity.
Wow.
The second thing we had to figure out was how to open the stores safely. And, it seems like ages ago, but all of the federal, state, and municipal orders to ensure our colleagues could get to work and were safe were incredible. I mean, we were actually writing almost like permission slips for our truck drivers so that they could come in, so that they could, because they were in fulfillment. It was insane what we had to do. And all of this we were doing in the midst of a furlough, right? When you have no sales, you have to lay off almost 90% of your workforce. So, and that included the legal team. So, we had to figure out a whole new way to work remotely. I'm really thankful that I've managed a remote team for years. My legal team is spread out. I have lawyers in the San Francisco area. I've got a team in St. Louis, a team in Cincinnati and Mason, Ohio, and then a pretty big team in the Johns Creek, Atlanta area. So at least, we knew how to work on teams. That was not something we had to learn. So we kind of, we were able to hit the ground running. But it changed everything. It changed how we work. We had to, in addition to furloughing, when we brought people back as a company, we had to lay off a lot of people permanently, right? Or do a restructure. Maybe that's the better word. And then we had to deal with, and I'm sure all of you out there are still dealing with the team, isolation, engagement. How does the company respond? How do you respond as a legal department? There's just so many, different threads we can pull on. Macy's is just a wonderful company, and they rallied around these "Can we talk" sessions where we would go on and have 5,000 or more colleagues join these calls where a CEO would talk to someone, a doctor about mental health issues or about, racial violence, the murder of George Floyd. I mean, talking about those issues and answering questions. Our diversity and inclusion team, got a number of education paths, journeys, we call them, up on the website, so folks would have resources. We also started something called Guild, a debt-free education for all of our colleagues. Any of our colleagues can go online and start getting their bachelor's degree or a certificate in, cybersecurity or something like that. So that's how the company responded. And, as a team, we just held regular town halls. We got our engagement council going. They would host holiday parties, scavenger hunts, coffee chats on a number of different topics, presentation skills, that was a big one. And then I instituted something called the virtual break room, and we still do it. So every other week on a Tuesday at noon, you can just come on and we're just there talking as if we were in a break room or having coffee. And that way at noon, we can get our California folks with their coffee, we can get our East Coast folks with their lunch, and we talk about what TV shows we're binging, what books we're reading, what trips we're dreaming about. Just a lot of stuff.
That's all phenomenal things that both you and your team and Macy's put into place. And it underscores, I think, which everyone realized, how valuable the talent resource is. Like, without your employees, without your talent, businesses are nowhere. Yes, AI is great and stuff, but again, what we're seeing is the importance of it. So that's really phenomenal. So in the description of the webinar, we did talk about the importance of strategic thinking, agility, and creativity. And clearly everything you just talked about covers all of those. I guess anything else that you would add to people listening who are either general counsels or part of a legal team of on those skills of things that they should be focused on or do to make sure that they're developing and utilizing those skills in particular?
Well, as a general counsel, CLO, you know this, Maureen, right? It's less about practicing law and more about helping the business see around corners.
Right.
It's about being in the room and contributing as the strategy is being debated, and kind of helping all of the leaders with different functional responsibilities figure out how to do things the right way. We all have our functional hats, but you have to come up with the company strategy. And as CLO, I'm a big part of that, and I think that's kind of the most fun part of the job. Macy's strategy is focused on growth vectors now. During the pandemic, it was focused on conserving cash. And my job is to, whatever that corporate strategy is, my job is to help the team, the legal team, the information security team, the privacy team, operationalize that through, and support the business functions. So strategic thinking is paramount, but you can't think just like a lawyer. You have to think like a business person who went to law school.
Right. In a prior interview I read, you talked about the importance of emotional intelligence and listening. And as you may know, back in November, I led a panel discussion on that very topic. So I agree with you that I think both are really vitally important. Can you talk a little bit more about those skills and why they are particularly important, do you believe, today?
I think listening it's a critical life skill, not just for lawyers, but especially for lawyers, because we like to just jump right in and give the answer or fix things, but you learn so much when you listen, and not just hear, right? You have to listen to learn,
and with your eyes.
You have your eyes you have to actively listen. You have to ask questions. You have to, read between the lines, because you're listening to the body language. You're listening to the silence. When people withdraw, you want to know, your focus has to be on what is the end game. This person is coming to you with an issue or problem, and you want to, make sure you understand what it is they're trying to get to so that you can help them get there in the right way. So just asking a ton of questions, ensuring that you understand what they say. So you repeat it, paraphrase it, but, understanding the business is kind of what underlies all of this. And, if you're speaking a common language, the business, what this person does for the business, just makes it a whole lot easier. You were talking about emotional intelligence, and I think listening is kind of part one of emotional intelligence. But what about you? I mean, you gave the chat on this one. What was your thinking?
Well, I totally agree with everything you said, right? That I think the importance of listening is underrated. I think so many people, they believe the way to demonstrate their worth is go in a room and dominate a meeting by talking, and a lot of times that person really is not helping themselves or the company or the cause, that instead listening to what other people are saying. And sometimes I found that what people are complaining about or raising is not really their issue, but you have to listen very carefully to figure out that, okay, it really wasn't about that. There's something else going on in their personal life, or there's something else that you could see in their body language or whatever. So it really is important. And it's important. I'm not suggesting never to talk in a meeting, but, to be thoughtful, to listen, and to speak when you do have something to say and really contribute, to the whole. And I think people sometimes may not appreciate how they may be coming across, so that if you are this dominating force in a meeting, you may think, wow, I'm really showing aggressiveness and it's great or whatever. And that's not how you're coming across at all. So getting feedback from people about what they're really seeing, how their perception of you, which may be, and it may be not what you're intending at all, but it's how you're coming across, I think is really important. You also raised, which I totally agree, the importance of knowing the business and learning the business. And again, in an interview I read about you, if you could share your time at Domino's and the example there, how you learned, and we can explore this, I think, a bit further.
Sure. Domino's was my first GC role. It was the first time, I was brought in as the first in-house lawyer to build out a legal function and to help the company get ready to go public. So, and Bain Capital had just bought the company, and they brought in an external CEO, and I was the first external hire. So I was joining a team that had been together for decades. They all knew each other. And my CEO invited me to do a class that Domino's used to do for their master franchisees overseas, to teach them the business, like a 4-day operations for non-operating managers class. And I kind of laughed, it's like my second or third week on the job. I'm going, Dave, I'm still trying to figure out how to get out of these 30-minute guarantee lawsuits. And, we've got legal issues I've got to figure out. I'm trying to understand how, to set up a board portal. And, there's just so much I need to do. I can't take 4 days. So he smiled and, 2 or 3 days later, he said, I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm going to do this 4 days in a store in Vegas. Why don't you come with me? And that's, again, I said, no. And then, the third time he invited me, the light bulb went off. Oh, the CEO is inviting you to do this, right?
Talk about learning to listen.
Yeah, right. So I got my little uniform and hat on, and off I went to Las Vegas. And side by side, we spent 4 days in a Domino's pizza store, learning how to make it, bake it, and take it. The short story is we both came out of that realizing that corporate staff needed, that this was the best way to understand the business, because we had, thousands of pizza stores, and that's all we had. That was our business, right? It was a franchise model mostly. We had 600 corporate stores. The rest were franchise at the time. And if we didn't know how our work was either supporting or somehow, putting too much responsibility on a store manager, we needed to make sure everybody in corporate did that. So eventually we started Domino's Pizza University, and everyone went through that. But I was very pleased that I could make a large pepperoni pie in 44 seconds. And that,
Wow.
If I was doing store visits, I could throw on an apron and, work the POS system or cut a pie as good as anybody else.
So not everyone has that opportunity in the companies they were in, like, at Chubb, there wasn't like a storefront to go to. So do you have any suggestions about how people can learn about the business? I know things that I did, right, was I found out about seminars and programs that were being done for business people, and got myself and my team included to allow us to go. So you're learning with the business people about things they're talking about, and getting yourself included in business meetings where they're talking about the business, the importance of finding out what are the periodicals or online sources that the business people are getting about the business, whether it's analyst reports about the company or whatever it may be, to get that and be reading it and learning the business, and to ask questions. So I used to have my list of executives, and I would go have lunch with them. And in the course of the lunch, I'd have my, 10, what I would think, stupid questions about the business that I didn't know, because I had not done insurance previously. But it really, one, they were very happy to help and do it, but it really was good to learn the business, and it really is critical. Do you have any other suggestions for folks about what they should be doing?
Well, I've been, I'll say fortunate to have been in consumer facing businesses. So I've been able to get me and my team into stores. At Office Depot, we worked back to school. At Macy's, we worked Black Friday week, and Cyber Week, because the stores are a mess, and, they love another pair of hands folding sweaters. And that way we spend time in the stores and get to know how everything operates. But I like all the tips you gave, especially learning with, depending on your level, right? If you're coming in as GC, it's a little different. But if you're coming up as a counsel or, associate GC or something, that's the best way, is go side by side with your clients and take the same classes they're taking, spend time with them. One thing we've developed, a couple of things at Macy's. We have our employee resource groups, colleague resource groups, we call them CRGs. And those resource groups are a phenomenal way to get to know other people, their ethnicities, and what, holidays and all that. But our CRGs work very closely with the business, and they bring in speakers to talk about different areas of the business, and then they work to influence the business. I'm the sponsor for our La Voz ERG, our Latina ERG, Latinx ERG, and we've done a number of things in educating the company about Mother's Day. Mother's Day is very different, not very different, but it's different in Latin America. First of all, it's not the same first Sunday in May like it is in the US. It could be Mexican Mother's Day is a different day than, Central American Mother's Day. I mean, they're different days. They're celebrated more broadly. You don't just buy a gift for your mother like we do in the US. You buy a gift for all the women figures, your grandmother, your aunts, your godmother. So it's a much bigger gift-giving holiday than in the US. And we taught the business that and help the business, kind of market it a little differently. We also encourage the business to encourage Macy's to look at quinceañeras. When young women turn 15 in many Latino cultures, they have a big party. It's like a sweet 16, but bigger, right? Beautiful dresses and suits for the boys. What we were finding is, we had a lot of dresses that could kind of fit the bill, but we didn't have those small sizes of suits, for those skinny 14,
Wow.
15, 16-year-old boys. So get those in so that, we could reach a broader audience. So that's another way to get into the business and learn about it, and then you can help support it. We also have mentoring circles where, we have 4 or 5 colleagues from all different parts of the company meeting with the senior executive once a month for 6 months on different topics relevant to the business. So it's a lot of different things you can do.
So that's something we have in common too. When I was at Chubb, I was the corporate sponsor, the head of the Chubb Hispanic and Latino group. When I came home and announced this to my family, my teenage daughter was like, "Oh, is that because they don't have an Irish employee resource group?" And it's like, yes, okay. So again, something we have in common. When in my introduction of you, I mentioned all the areas that you have responsibility for. So it's much broader than legal. If you could talk a little bit about how that came about, was that from the get-go? Was it over time? And what you see as the pluses, minuses, or, pros, cons, risks that, challenges, whatever, of overseeing all of that.
I'm just going to go back one step to when I was 2 steps when I was at Domino's Pizza. I went there as a lawyer, very, kind of tunnel vision, focused on the legal issues, getting the company ready to go public. Sarbanes-Oxley had just been passed, so that was my focus. And I had a wonderful CEO that believed in me and saw something in me that was broader than just the law. So he challenged me to kind of get out of my lane, and he gave me responsibility for franchise services, which is kind of, it's a relationship with the franchisee. It's the contractual relationship, which makes sense, but it's also enforcing standards. It's developing the training program, what we're going to train the franchisees on. So he kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I had a team of non-lawyers working for me. So that was kind of the first step. And I realized I liked it, it pulled on, it developed something that I didn't know I had, that I could manage people, not just tell lawyers what to do. And I liked it. So at Office Depot, I had the opportunity to take on investor relations and internal audit shortly after I started. Not necessarily the best way, right? The audit committee gave it to me because they were concerned about an investigation that was going on. But at Macy's, it was a restructuring during COVID. We hired a new CFO who joined during COVID, and it just, the remit was just so broad because the prior CFO had been there for decades, and then there was a very strong controller who was moving on to something else. And the CEO and the head of HR were trying to kind of skinny down his world so that he could get up to speed more quickly and deal with the issues we needed to with liquidity.
Right, and you had a lot of issues going on.
A lot of things going on. So they said, Lisa, will you take the CISO? Our chief information security officer reports to the audit committee. But he doesn't report to the audit committee, he reports to me. But he's in visiting with the audit committee regularly. And I understood his world. I also knew that in his world, that's the privacy team sat there, and we worked very, very closely with that team doing risk analysis on new vendors and all of that. So I said, sure, I'll do this. But what just made sense, right? It's compliance oriented, so it's a good fit. What I didn't realize at the time, it's 150 people. So I went from a 45 person legal department to 150 new people coming into my world. And they did things I didn't understand. They were threat hunters and pen testers and white hat, black hat, all these things that were like very different, very different. But again, it's learning the business and understanding the business. So it was all remote, of course, but I spent a lot of time with the team, with the leaders of the different groups, getting to know what they did. But then I instituted elevator chats. I still do them. Like, on Monday, a meeting, a 15-minute meeting or 10-minute meeting might pop on your calendar with me. And it's with anybody in the organization, from administrative to, security analysts to, programmers. And, we spend 10, 15 minutes just getting to know each other. And I basically say, well, pretend you got in the elevator with me at Herald Square. And you have, it's a really slow elevator. You have 13 floors to go up. Tell me what you're up to, tell me what you're working on. Tell me about your kids. Tell me what what your dog just learned to do. I mean, it's just kind of get to know you. And I got through the whole team, and it's terrific. It's terrific. And now, I'm kind of starting round two, and I'll get back into everybody's house, but it's been kind of fun. So
that was instituted by you, that you would initiate to set up the 15-minute meeting, etc.
God bless my assistant. She does it. And,
right.
I don't know who's going to pop up on my calendar. In the beginning, it scared a lot of people. Some people thought they were getting fired, I announced it at a town hall, but not obviously everybody doesn't listen when I speak.
Right.
But now they know what it is, and I think people look forward to it.
Right. I remember when I used to try to periodically have lunch with various people, like on my team, whatever, and just not to talk business, but just chat, get to know them, whatever. And I can remember one coming with her legal pad, because she assumed I was going to give her an assignment, and all nervous about it. It's like, no, this is just, just lunch, just to get to know you. So I think that's sort of a common problem. But it sounds like at Macy's and your prior companies, the business really cooperated with you to learn the business, et cetera, to learn the jobs that you were being asked to take on, and having really good people on those teams, et cetera. I think for others, out there, I guess I would advise you need to make sure if you are taking on broader roles, that you have the support you need to take on those roles, and you do your homework and you educate yourself to be comfortable in the roles. Because especially, there have been terrible tales of lawyers getting involved, especially on accounting matters or sides. And I know of one that they wound up being, the interim chief accounting officer, and it didn't end well. You know what I mean? So I think it is to make sure it's great, and I think you should challenge yourself, as you have mentioned, and that's good. And I think we underappreciate what we're capable of. We really are capable of these things. And it's great to be beyond legal and into all these areas, but make sure you do your homework, you're ready for it, and the business is supporting you with whatever they're asking you to do. One thing that's sort of related to that is resiliency, which I think also is obviously very important today. For many of us and many out there, probably things don't always go according to our plan or what we thought, and it may be a mistake on our part, or it could be something that was outside our control. Believe it or not, last night we ordered Chinese food, and I opened my fortune cookie, and my fortune cookie said, "Most success springs from an obstacle or failure." So I thought that was rather fitting. So one example in my case was when Chubb got acquired. As a result of that, I lost my general counsel role, and it was not part of my plan at all. I had intended that I was going to stay there to the age I decided I was going to retire at, which was much later than that. And it really was an adjustment for me because it was the first time I was unemployed since graduating from law school. Went straight from college to law school, worked nonstop ever since. So that was jarring. And then I had never realized how much of my identity was tied to my job. So when people would ask, like, "So what do you do? What are you doing?" Or you had to sign up, and a required field was the name of your company. And it's like, I don't have a company. So it was really hard. And I had to step back and reframe it to think about this was now an opportunity. And the first time in my life to step back and think about what I really wanted to do and what did I enjoy doing. And especially at that time in my life, in my career, what did I want to be next? And it resulted in becoming a senior advisor with BarkerGilmore, doing the coaching and advisory work, which I love. Board service, great, work on non-for-profits, and doing things I never had time to do when I was working full-time, like being in a book club. I'm now in 2 book clubs. I'm lucky if I could have read a novel when I was working full-time. But can you share like your experiences in that regard of challenges you've had and having to come back from something?
Well, Maureen, I remember when you were going through that. I do remember that. And, I remember how good you were about reaching out to, I'm assuming, an extended network, because I was part of that.
Right.
And talking about stuff and business and offering to help. Even before you were with BarkerGilmore, you were offering to help and, going on committees and really working your network. And so I remember that. And I'm glad you ended up doing fun stuff and that you're enjoying it. I love seeing that. Resiliency is key, right? We all have to kind of figure it out and shake it off when things don't go right. Sometimes I don't stick around. Like when things get tough, I find another job. I'm one of those, right, that stays forever. But I've had my issues. I'll give an example with my board, not my current board, but at a prior company. I had, there was a transaction that was being structured that needed board approval. And there was some implications in the agreement, some things that would benefit the CEO if certain things happened. And they were kind of like, not red flags, but the kinds of things I felt the board really needed to focus on and talk about. But the CEO told me, downplay it. You present what you have to present. The board has to approve it, but, don't dwell on this stuff. So I brought outside counsel in. And, that way, the CEO won't get upset with me, but I told outside counsel, walk them through all the provisions of the agreement and focus on these because they're important. And of course, he knew they were important. And that's a really important life skill for you in-house lawyers. When you've got like something that's really ugly, give it to outside counsel. Let them do it, because you have to preserve the relationships, right? You've got to be there all the time. They come and go, or they report to you, so you can protect them. So remember that. So we did that. Board approved the transaction, of course, and fast forward a couple of years, and things played out that this benefit, the CEO got this benefit, and the board was not very pleased. Well, we didn't know about that. I'm going, oh, no, you knew about this. I pulled out the minutes, I pulled out the slides, I pulled out the presentation, and I said, look, outside counsel walked you through this. I did everything I could, and I literally said this to the chair of the audit committee. I did everything I could short of dancing naked on the conference room table. And she looked at me and she said, Elisa, next time, dance naked on the conference room table. And, lesson learned. I now, I have a great relationship with that director who retired and moved on, and I moved on as well. But I learned a lesson that day that full and fair disclosure and outside counsel doesn't have the same weight in the room as the general counsel, the chief legal officer does. They listen to you and they need to hear from you. So I ensure that every board meeting, every audit committee meeting, when the audit committee chair is doing the committee is doing one-on-ones, the CLO is always one of the one-on-ones. Nobody else in the room but me and the audit committee. So I always have that outlet. And it's not like special, like I don't have to ask for it. It's just there. Even if I go in there and say, nothing to tell you, I still have that opportunity. So that's another kind of lesson learned that perhaps people should think about.
We do have a question in about learning about the business again, and how do you balance the risk reward of asking a dumb question from a business counterpart and learning from their answers versus the business counterpart thinking, you're an attorney, you don't need to know any of this, and this person has found that this is all very difficult. I always believed, right, there's no such thing as a dumb question, and probably the dumb thing is not to ask the dumb question. I don't know about you, but I've been in a room that I would be there and I would think of something and it's like, it must be obvious, like, because if I'm thinking of everyone must know it, so it must be a dumb question. So you don't say it, and it wound up being that was a critical issue, right? And that was something that should have been raised and you didn't raise it. I think it's learning how and when to raise the question. So what I often would do is write down what I would think of, like, maybe this is, if it didn't have to be raised in the meeting, if I don't really understand what's being said, make a side note, and then afterwards to take a trusted colleague aside or the person who's the most knowledgeable and say, I didn't really understand this, could you explain this to me, etc. That has always worked. Currently, the board I'm on is a US sub of a Spanish company. So a lot of time I'm on the audit committee and I'll read stuff and there'll be these terms and I'd be like, God, I have strong accounting background. I don't understand this term at all. And then I would go and ask the CFO and it's like, oh, that's the Spanish acronym that they throw in at the company. You don't really need to know that as well. But meanwhile, if I didn't ask, I would be trying to search accounting literature as to what this term means. So I think it's, finding the right forum and the right, so I wouldn't interrupt a meeting to ask a question that you're not sure is really a good question. Or maybe a side way to do it is an appropriate way to do it. What advice do you have?
Just from the wording of the question, I'm thinking maybe there's a client that kind of wants to box you into being a lawyer and doesn't really want your business advice. And that's okay. They are the business people and you're giving legal advice. But I think making sure that the client knows that you can give better legal advice if you understand the underlying business and what their objective is. Because while you might say no to this clause because it's just stupid, downright illegal, if you know what their end game is, as I said before, you can help structure an answer that will work. And I've been in those companies and those relationships where they like, well, you're the lawyer, here's the contract, you know, stay within the four corners of this contract. And, you know, that's one thing that, you know, we teach our legal teams. You've got to understand the full context of the deal so that you can give legal advice.
Right. And I think it's important that to try to explain to them, and I used to use this thing, what paid my salary and my team's salary and our bonuses was the company being able to do business and writing business. So our role was helping them get to yes, helping them do business. So explaining to the business colleagues that you're understanding that and understanding their strategic initiatives, what's really important to them, what's driving them, will make you be better able to serve them and help them get the business done. So there will be some out there, I agree, that may be always resistant and they want to put the lawyer in the corner and not hear from the lawyer. And it's like, just talk. If it's illegal, tell me, and otherwise shut up, right? There unfortunately are some out there, but there are others, I think, who are willing to listen. You just need to explain why it is you really need to know. And that's like what I said before about trying to get included in business meetings or attending things. You may have to explain, why is it, you know, are you trying to jump over to the business side? No, I just want to understand because I can better serve you by understanding what really is important to you and what really drives your numbers. Now, you've talked before about, and obviously through the pandemic, how Macy's strategic plan was changing probably daily, right? Was trying to come up with new things. So in terms of the legal department, do you come up with a strategic plan, and do you try to, you know, what do you do to try to go about supporting the company's overall strategic plan?
Yeah, we do a tops down and a bottoms up approach, right? I come out of, you know, the executive committee, the corporate strategy group with the company's objectives. You know, we're supporting the growth of private brands. We're supporting our new small store format. We're going to grow our personalized offers. And you know, so all of these, I take them back to my LLT, I call it my legal leadership team. I share this with them. They then go back to their teams and they build up kind of the bottoms up initiatives that they're going to work on to support that. The personalized offer team, you know, personalized offers is going to take, you know, the privacy lawyer, the credit and loyalty lawyers, and they come up with their specific objectives to support that. And then, you know, we kind of mold them together, and what my lawyers roll up becomes my corporate objectives. So they become, you know, what I will be held accountable for, what I take to the CEO and say, okay, these are the specific things I'm accountable for this year. Accountable for the whole strategy as part of the corporate strategy group, but as a legal team, these are the things we're going to accomplish in support of, you know, growing private brands or the small store formats. You know, we're going to open X number of stores, and I'm going to make sure we have a lease form that will help us do that, because it's very different than mall-based stores, which is something we know how to do really well right now that we're doing these smaller stores in these strip centers. It's completely different lease negotiation skill set. So that's the way we do it. And then at the end of the year, of course, you know, I sit down with the CEO and I go over all of that, but I kind of close the loop. I do a legal year in review. I have each department, on my team kind of pull together their accomplishments, how many litigations we had, how many arbitrations, you know, all the graphs and charts. And then I preface it all with our legal spend on outside counsel, our full legal spend in-house. And then I kind of show a chart of the company's revenue and our legal costs. And as long as it's going in this direction, I'm in good shape. But that's something else that I present to the executive team so that they understand the value of the legal team, because, you know, they forget about us. They got their deal through.
Right.
Legal's great, done. Or we're slowing a deal down. Oh, legal's horrible. But if they get something that shows, you know, we did 12,000 contracts last year, it's like, whoa, you know. So I make sure that I sing my team's praises, and that's our report card.
Right. And that's really important to do, the importance of data and using data that you collect, and you can show, you are adding value, because I think a lot of times legal gets the bad rap that you're just a cost center. And, what are you doing for us to demonstrate your whole team's value and how much you really add to, again, achieving the strategic objectives of the company overall. Now, one change that is common that I know you're currently going through is change in top management, and particularly the CEO. And I know Macy's recently announced that your CEO will be retiring at the end of the year. And you may have also dealt with that in some of your prior experience. But just if you could, talk a bit about that, and what advice do you have for people who may be going through that now or will go through that, suggestions that you have?
Yeah, well, I'm really pleased with our process. We recently announced the transition. It was a 2-year process. And, it's something that the board always is and should be thinking about. But it included, a full board review of internal and external candidates, handled in an orderly fashion. It was done quietly. Nobody really knew what was going on. But the fact that the investment community has seen it as a non-issue is the best news I could get. Right. We ended up, we're elevating the CEO of Bloomingdale's, and he's now the president and CEO elect. And Jeff Gannett, my CEO, will stay until the end of the fiscal year in February. So plenty of time to kind of move it along. We also have our CFO is taking on a broader operational role as well. So another good reason why I took all that responsibility off his hands so that he could do other things.
Right.
So I think it has to be done carefully. I have done it a few times, and it's different every time, right? This time it was pretty orderly. One time I did it, it was, a CEO was asked to leave, and a board member stepped in. It was an overnight thing. I got a phone call from the board member and said, "Let's have breakfast tomorrow." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, meet me at such and such." And he told me what was going to happen. So by the end of the day, the CEO was gone, and our board member had been installed. And then we brought in, after 2 years, we brought in an external person. And at the same time we were merging Office Depot and Office Max, we brought in an external CEO to kind of oversee the whole thing. So it's different every single time. And what you need to do as the Chief Legal Officer, General Counsel, is you need to know what that person needs to know. Your job is to serve that CEO and make sure that he has all of the transition information he needs. Right now, my single objective for this year, according to my CEO, is to get Tony ready and to make sure he understands board process and the nuances of the board and how they operate, the major litigation, the major contract issues, what legislation we're facing, and worried about at the government affairs level. So that's your job, is it's orientation. And we do it for board members when they come on, but when you have a CEO transition, it's even more important. And there's going to be people jockeying for position and trying to show up as like the go-to person. But trust me, GC, you are the go-to person, and you don't have to jockey for position. Right. That new CEO needs you. So just do your job and, kind of give whatever he or she needs.
Right. And it underscores the important role that General Counsel, Chief Legal Officer plays, really as such a huge support and advisor to the CEO, and to really demonstrate your worth, and that your job, as you put it, is to make the person be successful and do well at his or her job. And so, I think that really is important.
And know what that CEO's skills are, right? If they've never been at a public company before, damn, you're going to go in there with Reg FD. You're going to slam their head against the wall with the Reg FD. Right. So you do your homework on the candidate as well.
Now, we just have a couple of minutes left, so I know some may view it as a trite question, but what is something you wish you had known? And maybe do it at 2 parts in your career. So one, when you first went in-house, And maybe the next time when you first became general counsel, what's something you know now that you wish you had known then?
Well, the first thing is the kids grow up really fast. So don't forget about them or neglect the time with them. Stop and enjoy them. I don't know that I did that enough, and it's important. And second, I'm just going to underscore what we've been talking about. Understand the business. You really have to know the business, and that your value just skyrockets when you know how the company makes money. And you make that your priority. And it sure makes prioritization easy, right? You can easily prioritize when you're in-house. Company's going to make money off of this.
Right.
I'm going to do that first.
Right. Or not lose a lot of money or go to jail. That's we used to always joke about. Who no one really looked good in orange. That was
that's the price of admission.
Right. Like for me, I must say that one thing I wish I had known. The value throughout my career of networking and the importance of keeping connections going. It was, juggling the work that we do and raising family and trying to do the best you can and convince that your kids are going to have be in therapy because you're doing a terrible job as a mom because you're never there or whatever. So you're constantly struggling. And so what would go by the wayside is like keeping up with people as much as one should have. So I think that's important. I wish, and it's not to be that you don't see your kids at all so you can go out partying all the time, not suggesting that, but finding a way to keep those connections because I think they're important in your career. And then one thing I discovered when I was at a law firm, I thought I understood politics well. When I went in-house, how politics it's daily. And it's not a dirty word. It just exists, and you have to understand the dynamic within the company. We've been talking about understanding the business is understanding that political dynamic within the company, how things are decided, who's who, what the process is really important for you to get to know that. And I think you learn that by networking with other people in the company and people in the business. Anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to add? And we're at the end of our time.
No, I think the networking one is key. And I certainly didn't really understand the value of it until I became a general counsel. And I moved, I moved from New York, where my network was, to Michigan, where I didn't know a soul, and had to learn how to network with strangers.
Wow.
Bob's back.
Well, thank you, Elisa, as well as Maureen. Both of your insights, and Maureen for hosting today. And we want to make this program continue to improve and make it as valuable as possible for everyone. So feedback is extremely valuable. And we just ask everyone that you'll receive an email, just a 1-minute survey for your thoughts. And so if you could please complete that as soon as possible with candid feedback, we'd really appreciate it. And if there's anything we could do to assist you in your career or your organization, whether it be talent needs or coaching and advising, feel free to reach out to Maureen or myself or anyone on the BarkerGilmore team. So thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to having you join us in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you.